Well, thank y'all for going ahead and listening to my presentation today, and remember, save your tailgate and buckle up.
I don't know why she gave us these. That was so stupid.
We ain't never gonna sign this anyways. It was just pointless.
I never buckle up. I'm always in too much of a rush.
Me either. Who has time for it anyways?
You know, buckling up could save your life.
If you don't believe us, maybe you'll believe them.
Have you ever lost someone because they did not buckle up?
I didn't lose anyone because they did not buckle up, but I have friends that were saved because they did buckle up. My senior year of high school, I had a friend who was driving her car, and she was going to volleyball practice with about 4 other people, so it was 5 total in the car. She ran off the side of the road and flipped her car 5 times. Her car was almost completely totaled, and everyone had some kind of injury, but the officers told them that if they were not wearing their seatbelts, all of them would have been ejected from the car and would have died. So, they got saved because they were wearing their seatbelts.
Have you ever lost someone because they did not buckle up?
I did. January 17th, my brother and his best friend were in a car accident late at night, and they were drinking and driving after a party, and neither one of them had a seatbelt on. And his best friend ended up dying as a result of the accident. And my brother was injured. He had collapsed lungs and a broken vertebrae and a broken jaw and was thrown from the car. There was one other person in the car who was buckled up, and she suffered a broken foot, and that was the only injury that she had due to the accident when it rolled.
And how did it affect you?
It affected our family a lot. My brother ended up suffering the loss of his best friend, which he's still, 3 years later trying to get over, 2.5 years later trying to get over. And then he also ended up being charged as a result of the accident. So for our family it was really traumatic because it was an accident that could have been avoided but ended up getting worse because of the loss of Brandon and the fact that they weren't buckled up, and the fact that if he was, then the results could have been completely different than what they were. So.
Now, what advice would you give students about the importance of buckling up?
I think it's really important to buckle up, and what I've heard from a lot of kids is that the argument that sometimes buckling up will keep you from, or not buckling will save you if you need to be ejected, and it comes down to the fact that no one ever needs to be ejected from the vehicle, and that the chances of you not buckling up and being okay in an accident are very slim. And so I would tell any kid who gets in any car, whether they're driving or riding, that they should wear a seatbelt because it could be the difference between life and death. And I think that's really important.
One day, a fellow teacher's brother left a party intoxicated. As he was driving down the interstate at speeds exceeding the legal speed limit, he lost control of the vehicle and flipped several times into the woods, hitting a tree. And luckily, since he was wearing his seatbelt, he left the scene without any scratches.
Have you ever lost someone because they did not buckle up?
No, I haven't, but I've been doing this in this line of work for like 20 years, and I've seen a lot of kids, adults, they didn't buckle up. It wasn't real bad accidents. So, it's very important to buckle up.
And how did it affect you?
Well, it takes a little bit from you as a person, because to go up to a vehicle and see someone laying there because they didn't buckle up the seatbelt and they were ejected from the vehicle, it has a serious effect on a person. Whether you're in law enforcement, emergency personnel, as far as the rescue squad, it still affects the person. So it does have an effect on it.
And what advice would you give students about the importance of buckling up?
It's very important to buckle up due to the fact that in the states that it's a required law, the percentage is like 63% of people that killed in fatalities because they didn't buckle up. But in the states that it's mandatory for them to buckle up, then it's 78% that that they don't buckle up, and then they're more safer. Put it that way. So buckling up is very important. And then also that if you don't buckle up, what happens is that the insurance rate goes up. In lose lives, it costs $8.8 billion nationwide when people doesn't buckle up. So it's very important to buckle up.
Have you ever lost someone because they did not buckle up?
Unfortunately, I've known of several students who graduated from Middlesex High School who have lost their lives in very bad accidents because they were not wearing their seatbelts. All of them were ejected from the vehicle, and all of the professionals there at the crash sites said that had they stayed in the vehicle, they would have had a really good chance of surviving, and that would have happened if they had their seatbelts on.
And how did it affect you?
It breaks my heart when we lose young people who die simply because they didn't wear their seatbelts. It's devastating when anybody's life is lost, but particularly someone as young as you all, who are just starting their lives and die so tragically.
And what advice would you give students about the importance of buckling up?
That it is the single most important thing and the simplest thing that you can do whenever you get in a vehicle that will save your life if you're ever involved in a crash. And students think they're invincible and they're great drivers and nothing bad will ever happen, but everyone here at this school knows of someone who was close to them or someone they were acquainted with who has lost their life because they did not buckle up. And that's why we stand in the parking lot every day and remind students to put their seatbelts on if they don't have them on, because it will save your life.
Have you ever lost someone because they did not buckle up?
I have had classmates that after I graduated from high school that I lost, that affected me a lot because we had just graduated from high school, and then they were involved in car accidents and were killed. And that was one of the things that I didn't address with the senior class this year, but I really wanted to say to them is to look around and look at all your classmates right now, because it is likely within the next few years that one of them will not be with you anymore. And I think that that's one of the saddest things to think about when you are, people that are 17, 18 years old think that they're invincible. We always thought that we were invincible. And to find out that someone that you graduated high school with was killed it really makes you realize that you're not invincible and that life is really precious. One of the worst cases that I've ever had, I've had two really serious cases. One, I had a secretary that worked for me, and her son was killed in an automobile accident. And to see how that affects her year after year after year on the anniversary of his death is heartbreaking. And to lose a child, I think that there can't be anything worse than that. And my son had a friend that was killed a couple of years ago, Ruffin Creekmer. And it devastated him. It was a loss. He had not lost anybody before, and it was someone that he had played basketball with, and here at Middlesex High School, and it was something that was absolutely devastating to me and to him. More to me because I watched my child weep over the loss of that boy who, if he had been, they had said if he had been wearing a seatbelt that he would have survived that crash. And nobody knows whether that's true or not, but I think that to see the pain in my child's face over that loss was devastating to me.
What advice would you give students about the importance of buckling up?
It takes just a couple of seconds, and it should just be automatic. When you get in the car, seatbelt goes over, you start your car. The advice I would give is always buckle up. It will save your life. You just never know. It may not be something that you do while you're driving. It could be somebody else that hits you. I had my aunt and uncle were struck down in Gloucester Point. They were going through the intersection legally, and a drunk driver hit them and T-boned them from the side, flipped their vehicle over. Their vehicle ended up upside down. If they hadn't had their seatbelts on, they could have been killed. And so it may not be your fault that you're in an accident. It could be someone else's fault, but that seatbelt can save your life. And so take the few seconds. It takes 2 seconds to buckle up. Take the few seconds, because those few seconds will save a lifetime of heartache for the rest of us that are left behind without you here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's buckle up. Yeah, it's important.